Discover 3 spine-chilling true horror stories that will haunt your last day of school forever. As sunlight bathed Maplewood High in a warm glow, Mia Morgan felt a chill claw at her gut. It was a day of celebration, the last day of school, but her heart raced a sensation like cold fingers wrapping around her throat. Her friends were laughing, excited for graduation, but shadows whispered in the hallways. Something was wrong. Maybe it was just the foreboding air around the school, or the way stories about the abandoned wing echoed back to her. They were just stories, right? A chill trickled down her spine at the thought. Did you hear? Jason S. missing. Rachel blurted, tossing her hair back defiantly. Jason, everyone loved him. They exchanged hushed curses and trading wide-eyed glances. The rumor spread like wildfire, igniting a fire of panic. He was last seen near the abandoned section of the school, an area parents warned their kids to avoid. Laughter quickly faded into something heavier, as uneasy as the thick summer air. Just then, Mia remembered the forbidden part of the school. A pit opened within her. Should we? She muttered, hardly able to piece her thoughts together. They couldn't just let Jason stay lost. A surge of adrenaline washed over her, despite the ever-rising dread. She agreed, and they gathered their tools, flashlight beams cutting through the shadows as they slipped from safety into the unknown. As they approached the abandoned wing, the brick facade loomed above like a malevolent titan. The squeak of their sneakers on cracked linoleum haunted them, but a shared resolve pressed on. They laughed nervously into the dark, drifting thoughts of fear pushing against their buoyancy. The closer they got, the more the laughter felt like a thin veil over fear. Suddenly, a text buzzed in Mia's pocket. It was from an unknown number. You shouldn't be there. Goosebumps crawled all over her. A nasty knot twisted in her stomach. She shot a glance at her friends, but instead of panic, they shrugged it off as a prank, the kind they giggled about during the day. But deep down, Mia felt a tightening in the air. Something was coming. Wait, did you borrow my jacket? Chloe asked, breaking the mission's focus. Mia froze. Her own jacket wasn't with her. They laughed softly, but the humor felt forced. As they stepped deeper into the darkness, whispers of the past started to wrap around them, hiding secrets they weren't prepared to face. Entering a dimly lit room filled with dust and old trophies, they unearthed treasures of a forsaken history. Mia stumbled upon a blood-red note scrawled on the peeling walls. They never left. Panic flooded through her. The air thickened. Their small group began to splinter as suspicion crept in. Who sent the texts? Who was the traitor among them? Before they could grasp the enormity of what they found, another text buzzed, sending shivers down Mia's spine. You'll pay for what you've done. The pit in her stomach grew lead-like, their time of innocence slipping like sand through fingers. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mia's breath quickened as the shadows deepened. The atmosphere thickened like fog. Heart rates accelerated. What was happening? As thoughts raced, every creak now echoed screams within the abandoned walls. Where was Jason? The lurking dread amplified until it erupted like a sudden storm in their midst. And then, from the darkness, a familiar figure emerged, a beloved teacher. Eyebrows knitted, eyes wide with an unsettling intensity. You don't belong here, they whispered, a hint of warning lacing their tone. Mia and her friends stood frozen. The truth they sought was splitting open before them. What had they awoken? The night was about to unravel in ways they never anticipated, and they were right at the center of it all. Mia's breath caught in her throat. The teacher's voice echoed like a ghostly warning, reverberating off the cracked walls. Were they really in danger? Her friends looked at each other with a mix of confusion and fear, swallowing their unease as adrenaline surged. What do you mean? Chloe asked, her voice trembling. You shouldn't have come here. The teacher replied, a shiver running through their words. You're in the wrong place. Mia's heart raced. An unseen force gripped her limbs, the chill creeping back up her spine. What happened to Jason? She called out, desperation spilling from her lips, but the teacher took a half step back, eyes darting around as if expecting shadows to lunge at them. Leave. Now. The urgency in their tone demanded action. Yet Mia felt rooted in place. The chilling realization crept in: what did they want to hide? Before she could voice her thoughts, the opposing walls seemed to pulse, shadows swirling like ink in water. Did you hear that? Whispered Ethan, looking toward the source of the ominous sound. In an instant, all eyes were flicked toward the far corner of the room where a door hung ajar, the dim light flickering behind it. The air grew thick, self-doubt mingling with fear. Rachel took a step forward. I think we need to check it out. Jason could be in there. No. Mia shot back, fear drenching her voice. The teacher's right. We need to leave. Ignoring Mia's protest, Rachel rushed toward the door, her flashlight flickering wildly as she edged closer to the unknown. The others hesitated, their instincts battling curiosity. Ethan lingered. Maybe we'll find clues, he muttered. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker more violently, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat. When they returned, what stood before Mia and her friends stole their breath. A grotesque figure loomed in the doorway, its features blurred, indistinguishable from someone they once knew. Mia's heart dropped. Jason. She breathed, dread coiling in her stomach. No. The figure rasped, voice guttural. Help me. The words hung in the air, twisted and warped, resonating within their fears. Was this really Jason or something much worse? Mia stumbled back, grappling with the truth of their situation. Suddenly, the past flooded back into focus: the stories of students going missing, whispers of dark rituals carried out in the shadows of the school. Every legend, every warning, felt like splinters in her mind. Chloe gasped. We should get out of here. But even her voice trembled in the growing darkness, eerily silent and thick with dread. Stay back, Mia warned, shielding her friends as the figure began to shudder. Yet, before they could react, it lunged forward, the very air vibrating with its tortured energy. Screams erupted, echoing through the desolate hall, but the darkness swallowed them all. The shadows flooded around the students, swirling and drawing them closer to the figure. One by one. We belong here. It hissed, words slicing through the space like chilling wind. Mia fought against the pull, heart racing, feeling as though time warped around her. She saw the faces of her friends twist in terror, their pleas lost in the suffocating void. And in that moment, she knew they had awakened something far more sinister than mere shadows. The figure paused, eyes locking onto Mia with an intensity that pierced her soul. Join us, it beckoned, voice low and serpentine, threads of danger wrapping around her. Suddenly, she found herself tumbling back, landing hard against the cold floor. Run! She screamed, her voice barely breaking through the chaos. But would they escape this nightmare? As they turned to dash toward the light, a low growl echoed from behind them, promising that whatever darkness prowled beneath the school was just beginning to awaken what was lurking just out of sight. And at what cost would they escape? Mia's heart thudded like a drum as she scrambled to her feet. The flickering light became a strobe, illuminating the chaos in the room. Her friends were frozen, eyes wide, faces as pale as the moon. We need to go, she shouted, barely able to hear her own voice over the rising growl that seemed to emanate from the shadows. Chloe was the first to move, grabbing Ethan's arm. This way, she cried, sprinting towards the only exit they had through the whirlpool of darkness. But behind her, the grotesque figure lunged, fingers stretching like claws, searching for a hold on anything living. Don't look back, Mia yelled, pushing her way to the front as terror coursed through her veins. They raced down the hallway, footsteps echoing on the cracked linoleum floor, a frantic beat trapping them in a symphony of dread. Rachel stumbled, falling to the ground with a harsh thud. Help! She cried, a wavering plea that sank into the oppressive air. Mia felt the pull of the shadows, as icy tendrils reached for them. She couldn't hesitate. She yanked Rachel to her feet, adrenaline amplifying her strength. They dashed toward an exit sign glowing eerily at the end of the hall, an escape that felt like a mirage. The growling morphed into laughter, a rattling, distorted chuckle echoing in the place where Jason once stood. Faster! Ethan urged, his voice a mix of urgency and fear. They were nearing the door when a shadow erupted from the walls, a swirling mass that seemed to merge with the figure they'd just encountered. Mia stumbled again as a wave of cold washed over her, nearly toppling her balance. "Don't stop!" she screamed, pushing through the terror. "Where do we go?" Rachel gasped, her voice cracking. "We'll never make it." But before Mia could answer, a loud crash rang out, sending a shockwave through the corridor. A locker burst open farther down the hall, and from it, something slithered. It was a dark, liquid shadow, oozing across the floor, moving like a predator stalking its prey. Mia's mind raced. "That way!" she shouted, pointing to an adjacent hallway, diverging from the exit. It was a risk, a gamble, but they couldn't face that thing. Not now. They veered off, breathless, the growls and laughter following them, a menacing echo of their own despair. As they ran, shadows danced around them, whispering their names like sirens luring sailors to their doom. Suddenly, they stumbled into a room that felt more like a tomb. The air was thick, stifling. An open window on the far side offered a glimpse of the outside world. Daylight blazing like a beacon of hope, but it was another risk. It meant they had to cross the room under the watchful eyes of the flickering lights. Mia threw a glance at her friends. "We climbed through that window. We can make it." They approached, but then the door slammed shut behind them, sending a jolt through the group. Mia jumped, the sound reverberating in her bones, and she spun around. A low voice echoed in her mind. "You should have stayed. Go!" Mia shouted, urgency fueling her. They surged toward the window, hands gripping the frame, desperate to escape. But just before they could jump, the shadows gathered at the door, forming into a solid mass, blocking their way. A twisted face emerged within the darkness, contorted with malice, and the laughter echoed louder, filling the very room with despair. Mia's heart pounded in her chest. She realized the shadows were not just after Jason. They wanted them all. Something deep in her gut told her that leaving would only unleash more horrors. "Trust me," Mia yelled, grabbing Rachel's arm. "We have to break through." Then, in a moment that felt like eternity, she pushed with all her might against the shadows, knowing that failure meant losing everything. Would they find a way past the looming terror? Or would the darkness consume them forever? The answer lurked just outside the reach of hope, waiting. Mia's palms went slick against the window frame as she strained for a way through. The shadows loomed closer, twisting and writhing, a dark ocean rising to swallow them whole. She felt Rachel's grip tighten, desperation fueling their shared resolve. But the entity at the door, whatever it was relentless, its twisted laughter a harbinger of doom. "Now!" Mia shouted, but the shadows surged forward, clawing at the air around them. Ethan lunged at the mass, throwing himself against it in a bid to create an opening. But as his body made contact, a piercing scream erupted from his lips. The shadows grasped him, pulling him back, dragging him toward the unrelenting dark. "Ethan!" Mia's scream cut through the air, raw and horrified. Suddenly, Chloe joined the fray. "Get to the window. I'll hold it off." Her voice was fierce, brimming with a bravery that masked her fear. With one last, determined glance, she hurled herself at the shadow mass, shoving against it with all her might. "Go! Now!" Chloe's shout cut through the chaos. Mia pushed Rachel toward the window, her heart racing as she felt the urgency of time slipping away. "Climb! Hurry!" Rachel scrambled, but she froze as Chloe's screams filled the room, frantic and agonizing. The sound pierced through her, a visceral reminder of what they were up against. Mia felt tears prick her eyes, but she couldn't look back. They had a chance, a moment of escape shimmering before them, even as darkness breathed down their necks. "Go!" Mia screamed again, her own strength faltering, the shadows whispering doubts trying to dig into her mind. With trembling hands, she vaulted through the window, the splintering glass cut into her skin, but the pain was nothing compared to the terror behind her. She turned just long enough to see Chloe struggle, swallowed by the shadow's grip, before Rachel followed her out. They landed in a heap on the soft grass below, the sun blinding them for a moment. The world outside felt surreal, too bright after the suffocating darkness inside. "Where do we go now?" Rachel breathed, panic rising in her voice as she looked back at the ominous building. Mia's instincts screamed at her to run, but she was frozen, the echoes of their friend's screams ringing in her ears. She could almost hear Chloe's voice, urging them to escape. Had they truly left her behind? "Mia?" Rachel's voice wobbled, pulling her back to the present. "What do we do?" Mia took a deep breath and tried to focus. "We can't stay here." We need to put distance between us and that thing. I'm not letting it take anyone else. As they started walking, dread wrapped around them like a thick fog. Leaves rustled violently in the wind. A sound almost too alive, too purposeful. Every creak and groan from the building sent shivers down their spines, and they could swear they felt something watching them from the windows, something otherworldly still hungry for them. Suddenly, Mia paused, her heart racing again. Guys, do you hear that? A soft whisper carried on the breeze, weaving through the trees. It was Chloe's voice. Mia helped desperation hit like a tidal wave. Mia's heart dropped. Another part of her relied on the chill creeping up her spine. Was it the shadows reaching for them even now? Run! Mia shouted, and together they sprinted, tearing through the trees, knowing they couldn't leave Chloe behind. But the further they ran, the more they realized that the darkness didn't just follow. They had awoken something insidious that seemed to crawl beneath the surface of the very ground they stood on. Waiting, what waited in the shadows outside their sight? Would they face the shadows again? Or had they already stirred something much worse? Branches scraped against one another, sounding like desperate fingers trying to reach them. Mia and Rachel dashed deeper into the forest, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Each footfall echoed with terror, as if the ground itself might betray them to whatever darkness loomed behind them. Did you hear it? Rachel panted, eyes wild, darting over their shoulders. Chloe, her voice stopped. Mia snapped, forcing them to pause. We can't think about that now. We need to keep moving. But even as she said it, the need to turn back gnawed at her. A deep, primal instinct told her Chloe might still be alive, that there was hope buried in those shadows. They stumbled through the underbrush, the bright light of the sun now a distant memory, clouded by the thick canopy above. A chill crept through the air, laced with something foul decay, like rotting leaves or worse. Something unnatural coiled in the silence, wrapping around their hearts. Mia, we can't just leave her. Rachel's voice trembled, a mix of desperation and pleading. It's too dangerous. We'll end up like her. Mia grabbed Rachel's arm, her fingers digging in, trying to shake the fear loose. They had to focus. But even as she spoke, a lump formed in her throat, heavy with guilt. They had escaped, but at what cost? A sudden rustle made them freeze. They shared a panicked glance. The sound came from the grove thick with shadows. Fear jolted through Mia, causing her breath to hitch. What was that? Before Rachel could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows. Both girls gasped as a tall, gaunt silhouette stepped into the dappled light. It wore ragged clothes that hung from its body like an unfinished thought, long limbs stretching as it turned its head at unnatural angles. Help me, the thing rasped, its voice eerily not like Chloe's, but somehow familiar. Mia, Rachel, run! Mia screamed, pulling Rachel away from the creature. They bolted again, weaving through trees, dodging branches like the world was trying to trap them. Everything around them felt alive, brooding and watchful. Terror clawed at their insides, pushing them faster. They burst into a clearing. The ground lay flat, a small pond reflecting the crescent moon. For a brief moment, peace settled over them like a blanket. The softness of the earth beneath their feet reminded them they were still alive. But that fleeting relief shattered as they heard the laughter again, bell-like, echoing from the trees. It was maddeningly familiar, chilling in its joy, as if the forest itself were mocking their fear. Mia glanced around, eyes darting in every direction. We need to hide. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Was it coming for them? They sank to their knees behind a thick trunk, panting heavily. As the laughter grew louder, they could see flickers of movement in the shadows. Other forms danced in the darkness, their bodies blending into the night like ink spilled across paper. And then, as if it had senses of its own, one turned its head, face almost human but twisted. It looked directly at them, a grotesque parody of a smile forming, twisting unaided by any muscles that might bind it. Oh God, Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. I can't do this. Mia felt panic clawing deeper, every instinct screaming to run, but they were trapped. The shadows converged, drawing closer, relentless. Suddenly, the figure behind them shrieked, a tortured sound that made Mia's blood run cold. Someone else was nearby. Chloe? Mia's voice cracked, the weight of dread bowing her. Is that you? But there was no answer, just the silence that enveloped them like a suffocating fog. What if it's a trap? Rachel's eyes reflected terror. We have to go. Yet the shadows pressed, swarming closer. And underneath it all, Mia felt a cold tugging at her heart. Was she ready to fight? Could they stand against the darkness that had claimed Chloe? As the shadows danced ever closer, a single question echoed in Mia's mind. Did they have the strength to face their fears? Or were they already lost? Behind them, shadows thickened, ready to engulf everything they held dear. And then suddenly the laughter stopped. The silence was deafening. Mia held her breath, her heart hammering in the oppressive stillness. Fear gnawed at her insides as she glanced sideways at Rachel. The look in Rachel's eyes mirrored her own terror, wide and glistening with unshed tears. "What do we do?" Rachel whispered, her voice barely a breath. Mia opened her mouth, but no words came. Then, cutting through the quiet, a low rustling erupted from behind the tree trunk. They both flinched, crouching deeper, pushing their backs against the rough bark. The shadows seemed to pulse with life, as if hunger had awoken within. A figure stumbled into view, lurching and twisted, just beyond the silvered edges of the moonlight. "Help me," it rasped, a voice both familiar and horrifying. Mia's breath caught in her throat. It was Chloe. "Mia! Rachel! Help no!" Rachel screamed, clapping her hands over her ears as if that might drown out the sound. "It's not her. It can't be." But Mia's heart ached with conflicting need. She wanted to run toward that voice, to grasp the warmth of her friend one last time. She wanted to believe. "Chloe?" Mia ventured, trembling. The thing in the shadowed grove swayed, its arms hung limp like dry branches. "Mia," it called, but the voice faltered, twisting into a dissonant echo that clawed at her mind. "Help me." Rachel gripped Mia's arm, her nails digging in. "We have to go. Now." But at that moment, the laughter erupted again, louder and more sinister. It echoed off the trees, a chorus of mocking children present yet unseen, as if they were relishing her hesitation. Instinct kicked in and the girls turned, bolts of fear firing in every direction. They scrambled to their feet, darting deeper into the woods that loomed like a gaping maw. The laughter followed them, chilling and cruel. "You can't run from us," it sang, swirling around them, burrowing under their skin. Branches snagged at them, reaching like skeletal fingers. Mia wished she could break free, but the forest felt alive, dark forces pulling them closer to the bone-chilling laughter. "Over here!" Rachel shouted, spotting a narrow path. They dashed toward it, squeezing through the thick underbrush with desperate determination. The shadows pursued, an unseen tide creeping closer, overwhelming. As they ran, the air thickened with a sour stench, something rotten and vile that heralded their doom. Panic clawed at their throats. They skidded to a stop at the edge of another clearing, breathless and shaken. The moon hung high, its light shimmering off a large stone altar in the center, draped in the thick, black vines coiling up like serpents. Mia's stomach twisted. This was no ordinary place. "What is this place?" Rachel breathed, eyes darting around for any sign of pursuit. Mia stepped cautiously toward the altar, dread pulsing through her. Symbols were carved deeply into its surface, jagged lines that spoke of ancient horrors, tales of offerings made under the very moonlight they now stood beneath. Then they heard it, the laughter, closer now, echoing from the shadows surrounding the clearing. A figure stepped into the moonlight, a child, smiling widely, eyes gleaming with malevolence. "You shouldn't have come here," it taunted, its voice an eerie mimicry of innocence. Mia felt her breath hitch, a cold terror wrapping around her heart. "Chloe!" She breathed out, but in her mind she was screaming. The child's expression transformed, the smile splitting its face unnaturally wide. "Stay with us," it chimed, laughter bubbling forth, joined by the shadows swirling around. Mia grasped Rachel's arm. "We can't stay here. We need to find a way out." The shadows merged, blocking the path back as the laughter crescendoed, rising into a banshee wail. Despair washed over her, and for a moment, she wondered what awaited them in the dark. Could they ever escape? Then through the chaos, something sharp caught Mia's eye on the altar, a glimmer of something metallic. She could feel its pull, a shred of hope amidst the terror. "Rachel! We have to get to that." There was no time to waste. With her heart racing, Mia broke toward the altar, the shadows closing in behind them, laughter erupting with fury. They needed to reach it before the forest took them for good. As they dashed forward, the night shifted, suffocating and dense, pushing against them. A single thought burned in Mia's mind. What if the escape was worse than what they left behind? And just as they reached the altar, the ground trembled beneath them, a rumble creeping through the air. An ancient presence stirred beneath the earth, awakening something long buried. With a final churning laugh, the shadows lunged forward. Would they uncover the truth beneath the altar, or be lost forever in the clutches of the forest? Mia felt the tremor ripple through her bones as the shadows surged. Rachel's grip tightened on her arm, a vice of fear. What is happening? She gasped, her voice trembling. I don't know, Mia replied, her eyes locked on the altar and the glimmering object atop it, a small blade caked in age and dark residue. The urge to reach for it clawed at her mind, drawing her closer despite the nightmare surrounding them. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony of use all too well, echoing through the clearing. Join us! Join us! The voices sang, the joy in their tone a mocking twist of grotesque familiarity. It was like being smothered in shadows, darkness infiltrating her thoughts. Mia took a shaky step forward, the sharp blade almost pulsing with energy. It's our only chance, she shouted, trying to gel her fear with some flicker of resolve. But deep inside, she felt a chilling realization claw at her consciousness. What if that blade was a key to something worse? No, Mia. We have to go, please. Rachel pleaded, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. Suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbled like an angry beast. The altar began to shift, the jagged symbols glowing faintly, casting ominous shadows that danced like phantoms. The forest felt suffocating, an invisible weight pressing in on them. The heartbeat of something ancient and malignant hungered for their despair. Mia glanced back at Rachel, their friendship binding them tighter as the shadowy figures loomed closer. In that moment, a fragment of desperation surged within her. What if that blade could sever their ties to this cursed place? Help me! She yelled, reaching for the blade, her heart pounding against her ribs. But a scream tore from Rachel's lips, a sound both primal and horrified. No! She cried, pulling at Mia, but the pull of the knife was stronger. As Mia grasped the hilt, the world shifted violently. The air buzzed with energy and every shadow erupted into twisted shapes, ravenous hands reaching out like a storm of nightmares. The metallic taste of fear coated her tongue as the forest screamed in anger, the branches clawing at them through the dark. Don't you dare! Rachel shouted, terror pooling in her eyes. But the knife was warm in her palm, its pulse syncing with the erratic rhythm of her heart. She could feel its connection to the earth beneath her feet, an invitation or a curse she couldn't tell. The laughter crescendoed, overwhelming and chaotic, and a surge of instinct. Mia plunged the blade into the ancient stone. A shockwave exploded outward, and the clearing erupted into chaos. The earth bucked and shrieked, shadows writhed around them, morphing into horrific figures of past sacrifices, their faces twisted in eternal anguish. Why have you awoken us? They howled, eyes aglow with worldly rage. Mia stumbled back, the world spinning. This wasn't a release. It was a summoning. She had opened a door that should have remained shut forever. Rachel screamed, every sound a razor blade cutting through the dark. As the dark figures lurched toward them, the shadows enveloped the altar, wrapping tight around the girls. Run! Mia shouted, clutching the knife tighter as if it held the power to pierce their new reality. The forest roared, branches snapping like bones in a trap. They turned once more, hearts pounding, taking frantic steps back into the unknown. But panic had floored chaos within the woods, shuddering with power unleashed. An eerie silence fell for a heartbeat, and then a whisper slid through the air like a snake. You awakened us. Now you shall join us. Mia froze, the chilling reality of their fate sinking deeper than fear. With a howl, the shadows surged again, rushing them with newfound vigor. Desperation coursed through Mia like wildfire. They had to find a way to close what they had opened. The two girls sprinted, adrenaline coursing through their veins, but the forest held no path for escape. All they had were the desperate hopes of survival and a harrowing question gnawing at their minds. Was anyone ever truly free once they called this place home? Unbeknownst to them, the echo of their past reverberated just ahead, waiting patiently, ready to ensnare them in the darkness. The knife, still clutched tightly, felt heavier, as if it held more secrets than she realized. They were not just fighting for their lives, they were fighting for their very souls. Mia glanced at Rachel, their eyes connecting in a moment of shared dread. What if we can't escape? Rachel's breath hitched, and the shadows laughed in response, an answer lurking just out of reach. The world blurred as they stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at their clothes and skin like fingers of the damned. Each step echoed loudly, breaking the suffocating silence that hung over the clearing they'd fled. The whispers were closer now, a sinister symphony of voices that promised they were never really alone. Mia didn't look back. She couldn't. The memory of those contorted faces twisted in agony clung to her mind, a nightmare forged into reality by her own hand. Panic surged within her, settling like a stone in her gut. "We have to keep moving," she gasped, pulling Rachel forward as they darted deeper into the shadows. "Do you even know where we're going?" Rachel asked, her voice tremulous but edged with urgency. Her eyes shone with unshed tears, catching the faint light that struggled to break through the dense canopy above. "No, but anywhere's better than here," Mia shot back, the blade still warm in her palm, heavy with both weight and unspoken truths. They were trapped, not just in the woods, but in some unseen cycle that tightened its grip with every moment they lingered. Another rumble rolled through the earth, sending them into a wild panic. "Keep moving," Mia urged, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The forest seemed alive, shifting as if it were a living entity hungry for their despair. A sudden chill swept past, freezing her heart. "It's like it knows we're here," Rachel whispered, her voice barely more than a breath of wind lost in the rustling branches. Mia nodded, dread pooling in her chest. In that moment, she sensed a presence drawing nearer, a palpable weight in the air that promised darkness. Shadows curled around the trees, snaking along the ground, and the laughter was back, derisive and taunting. "Do you remember my brother's stories?" Rachel's voice cut through the cacophony, desperate for something familiar in the midst of chaos. "The ones about this place? How it can trap souls, make them wander forever." "Not the time," Mia snapped, feeling the tightening of the air around them, drawing nearer as if seeking to swallow them whole, but Rachel pressed on. "If it gets us, we can't let it take us." Her urgency sparked something inside Mia, a flicker of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. The ground shook violently again, and the shadows roared, a palpable threat rushing toward them. "What do we have to do?" Mia shouted against the chaos, searching Rachel's eyes for an answer. "We have to close the rift," Rachel exclaimed, her mind racing. "The blade. It's a key. We need to." Before she could finish, a figure loomed in the shadows, its form materializing slowly, a grotesque mimicry of humanity. The face was familiar, a loved one, twisted by darkness. It stretched and warped, a reflection of their deepest fears, paralyzing them with its presence. "Mia." Rachel, the figure croaked, its voice echoing like distant thunder, dripping with mockery. "You can't escape destiny. You're already ours." Heart racing, Mia shook her head, breaking away from the ice that held her still. "No, you're wrong." She gripped the knife tighter, feeling its power surge with her determination. This was their only choice, she had to believe in it. "Run," she shouted once more as the sinister vision reached a clawed hand toward her. They darted into the deeper woods, branches snapping violently behind them. Sprinting through the darkness, they stumbled into a clearing, speckled with ghostly light. The moon, breaking through the canopy, revealed a circle of jagged rocks, another altar, a mirror of the one that birthed their nightmare. "What if we don't get out?" Rachel's voice cracked, doubt creeping back in. "We must try," Mia gasped, feeling the shadows encircle them. Rage ignited, the warmth of defiance swirling in the pit of her stomach. With a quick glance back at the looming darkness, she surged toward the altar as if it were the only thing anchoring her to life. But just as they placed their hands on the cold stone, the echoes of laughter turned to a shriek, a raw sound that clawed at their sanity. In that moment, Mia's heart sank as reality shattered around them, revealing the hollow truth. They weren't just fighting to escape the forest. They were fighting against time itself, a time that sought to claim them both, fold them into its endless cycle of nightmarish surrender. As they pressed against the altar, Mia felt the blade's pulse quicken, dragging them further towards the void. A desperate thought crossed her mind. But what if that wasn't the only way out? The air thickened around them, tinged with the scent of damp earth and decay. Shadows danced across the altar, twisting into grotesque shapes that clawed at their peripheral vision. Panic clawed at Mia's throat, tightening her chest. The laughter morphed, layering itself with cries of the lost, wrapping them in a shroud of despair. Push! Mia cried, her voice breaking as she felt the cold stone pulse against her hands. The blade throbbed in her grip, its heat growing almost alive. Together. Rachel, eyes wide, nodded but her fingers trembled, hovering helplessly just above the altar's surface. What if it's a trick? She whispered, glancing back into the void, where monstrous faces flickered in and out like broken memories. What if we get sucked into something worse? A strange calm slid over Mia, breaking through the panic. What's worse than this? We'll die here if we don't try. She forced herself to sound braver than she felt. Let us just do it. They pressed their hands down firmly against the altar's rough surface, hearts pounding in unison. A blinding flash came from the blade, exploding with an otherworldly light that pierced the suffocating dark. The shadows recoiled, hissing like rattlesnakes disturbed in their lair. But before relief could settle, the ground trembled violently, as if the forest itself was angry. It's not working. Rachel screamed over the eruption of noise around them, her voice vibrating with terror. Suddenly, the once vibrant light dimmed, swirling into a vortex that threatened to rip them apart. Mia screamed as she felt something icy claw at her ankle, pulling her backward. Rachel! Hold on! She yanked at her friend, but it was like trying to pull her from quicksand. Rachel's terrified face reflected a whirlwind of emotions. Fear, desperation, and a flicker of hope. I can't hold on, she wailed, the shadows creeping up her legs. Fight it! Fight it! Mia shouted, gripping Rachel's wrists like a vice, the world around them distorting. With a final surge of strength, Mia plunged the blade into the altar, guided by instinct more than thought. The instant steel touched stone, a shockwave reverberated through the air, sending a ripple of energy shimmering across the ground. The forest screamed, voices shrieking in unison, shaking with primal fury. Mia's mind raced with flashes, memories of family, laughter, sunshine, every joy she'd taken for granted. Let it go, Rachel cried, her voice piercing through Mia's barrage of thoughts. Just like the stories, we have to let it go. She was fading, a shadow among shadows, and desperation clawed at Mia's throat, threatening to choke her. Let it go, Mia echoed, as the blade began to dissolve into the altar, brilliant sparks erupting. They surged forth, swallowing the darkness, the laughter turning into wails of anguish. The ground beneath them shuddered like a dying beast. Just as Mia thought it might all be over, a portal burst open, swirling colors erupting like fireworks. The claws released their grip, flinging Mia and Rachel toward the blinding light. Don't let go, Mia yelled, even as it threatened to consume them. With one last desperate pull, they shot forward into the brightness, hearts hammering like war drums, and then silence. Mia awoke sprawled on cool grass, the moonlight wrapped around her like a blanket. She gasped, wide-eyed, shaking off the remnants of terror. A soft breeze played against her skin. But there was something wrong, something nagged at her. Rachel! She called, panic skyrocketing again. The echo of her voice bounced back at her, alien in the stillness. She scrambled up, glancing around. Shadows stretched long and dark, but only the moonlight welcomed her. Rachel! She cried louder, dread pooling in her gut. As she searched, the distant whispers returned, teasing at the corners of her mind. You can't escape. Suddenly, a chilling realization struck her. She was no longer in the forest. They had escaped, but what if Rachel hadn't? The thought was like ice in her veins. Heart pounding, Mia turned back to where a glimmer flickered in the darkness. The shadows beckoned, dancing erratically. Yet something else flickered in the distance, an ache of familiarity. What if that wasn't just an echo of lost souls? What if it was an invitation back to the horrors they thought they left behind? Mia's heart raced as she fought through the fog of confusion. She stood alone in the quiet clearing, the echoes of the forest still ringing in her ears. Sunlight seeped in through the trees, but it felt wrong, too bright, too vibrant. It mocked her terror like a cruel joke, a stark contrast to the darkness they had just fled. Rachel! She shouted again, voice trembling. The surrounding silence pressed in, suffocating her. She stumbled back, emotions colliding, fear, despair, and a growing dread that gnawed at her insides. A flicker caught her eye, a shape in the shadows. Mia's breath hitched as she strained to see through the light filtering through the branches. Rachel! She called softly, her voice faltering, and then the silhouette shifted, pulling back into the cover of the brush. The dance of moving shadows felt almost sentient, as if something was hiding, waiting for her to draw nearer. In a flash, memories flooded back to her: the laughter, the whispers from the darkness, and the harrowing reality of what they had awakened. "No," she whispered, fear rearing its ugly head again. But just as she turned to run, the familiar voice broke through the silence. "Mia?" It came soft, tentative, with an echo of their shared history. "Rachel." Hope surged, igniting her steps as she rushed to the source of the voice, adrenaline pumping through her veins. Emerging from the shadows, Rachel appeared disheveled but alive. Her eyes were wide, brimming with the remnants of terror but also relief. "I thought I lost you." She broke into a sob, collapsing into Mia's embrace. "I thought we'd never get out," Mia replied, squeezing tightly. Despite the relief, the feeling of unease still clung to them both. The forest around vibrated with an unseen life, shadows still lurking just beyond their vision. As they pulled apart, Rachel wiped at her tears. "Did we really make it?" she whispered, trembling as they surveyed the clearing. "We have to be free," Mia urged, stealing her resolve. "But what if they're still with us?" Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught their attention. From inadequate cover, figures very much like the ones they encountered in the forest began to emerge, slowly, tauntingly, as if relishing their confusion. "You thought you could leave?" they echoed, a chorus of twisted laughter bubbling out. "No," Rachel shouted, rage igniting in her wet eyes. "Get away from us." But before either of them could process what was happening, the shadows lunged closer, surrounded by the flickering forms of those they had sacrificed, lost souls yearning for freedom, or perhaps, for company in their misery. "We have to fight," Mia yelled, clutching the blade tight in her hand. It pulsed with warmth and defiance, a small flicker of hope among the consuming dark. "It's a key to what we must face." The shadows halted, confusion layering their twisted features. "You belong to the dark now," one hissed, jarring the air, which chilled to the bone. "Not if we can help it," Mia replied fiercely. She knew they had a choice, an overwhelming power in the palm of her hand. They could break the cycle, but at what cost? "Join us," the voices shrieked, a collective plea twisted into a demand. "Let the darkness in." Mia and Rachel shared a glance, understanding dawning a mission beyond mere survival. They could not succumb. They had to submit to the truth they now held. The only way to truly close the rift was to confront the darkness, face it, and reclaim their freedom through it. Mia thrust the blade into the ground, triggering a surge of raw power that rippled through the earth. Shadows recoiled at the light, and Rachel stepped forward, heart racing. "Let us do this." Together they surged toward the figures, arms locked, yelling defiance. The shadows howled, twisting and writhing as the ground shuddered beneath their feet. "We will not be your prisoners," they shouted in unison. The blade began to glow, brighter and brighter, blinding even the darkest forms. The shadows faltered, faces contorting in agony as the brilliant light incinerated the last remnants of fear. And that moment, the clearing erupted. Embers of light flickered through, intruding upon the dark horizon. Mia felt Rachel's hand tightening around hers, their hearts beating in unison. Then, with an earth-shattering flash, a kaleidoscope of colors exploded before them, rendering the shadows into nothingness. Silence descended, and just like that, they were free. Mia and Rachel collapsed onto the grass, breaths heaving as the weight lifted from their chests. The clearing felt lighter, fear no longer holding its grip over them. Tears streamed down Rachel's cheeks in relieved joy, and Mia couldn't help but smile through her own exhaustion. "We did it," Rachel breathed, the words laced with disbelief. But as they stood, a small flicker of darkness lingered in the corner of their vision. "No," Mia whispered, scanning the horizon. "It's not over, is it?" Somewhere deep within the woods the laughter returned, faint but unmistakable. It hummed in the air, taunting them, reminding them of the battle they had just survived. The truth settled around them: they would always carry the darkness, a shadow within that could never be fully escaped. But as they took a step back toward the sunlight, hearts intertwined with newfound strength, Mia felt a resolve strengthen within her. They weren't just survivors. They were fighters, and they would face whatever darkness lay ahead, together. Together they could conquer the shadows. As they turned toward the path leading back home, their hearts echoed with determination. This was just the beginning. They had escaped the darkness for now, but they would never forget the power they held within. Let us go home, Rachel said, her voice steady, and Mia nodded, knowing that whatever awaited them, they would find a way to face it. With their shared strength guiding them, they stepped into the light, ready to reclaim the future. Now it's your turn. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to my channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories, diving into the unknown with us. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let it know you want more spine-chilling tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think awaits Mia and Rachel after this? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep the adventure alive together.